Feast TV is brought to you with support by Missouri Wines, L'Ecole Culinaire, Whole Foods Market at Town & Country in the Galleria, and the Raphael Hotel.
In this episode of Feast TV, we're taking you to an 1840s grist mill. We'll also watch beer go from grain to glass. Then it's down to a heritage pork operation in southern Missouri. And we're at the very first home game at Mizzou. We're tailgating with none other than John Perkins of Juniper. I'm Kat Neville, and this is Feast TV.
This episode, we are going to be making a cornmeal olive oil cake or a polenta olive oil cake. As I mentioned in the intro, we are going to be visiting a grist mill that was actually built in the 1840s. And so we're going to be using those stone ground grits to make a cake. And it's very unusual to use something like cornmeal in a cake, but if you ever have been exposed to Italian pastries, you'll find that they use it quite often. So through the episode, I'm going to make not only that cornmeal cake, but also an apple cinnamon caramel and some sauteed apples to put on top. And we're going to be pairing it with a white port from Oak Glen Vineyard, which is in Hermann, Missouri. So before I get started on the cake and all that great stuff, let's actually go to that grist mill. It's right along Turnback Creek in southern Missouri.
We were looking for a place to come to retire. And I opened up the real estate section. Here was this mill and artist cottage, and it described it just magnificently, and I thought, oh my goodness, this sounds like it's perfect.
It had been abandoned for probably 10 years after a devastating flood here. And so it required a lot of work and cleanup and gather knowledge. We were both totally ignorant of grist mill operation. The term grist is a cereal product that has been processed. It is not a misspelling of the word grits. This is what I refer to as the switch, the on-off switch. When we raise this gate, as it is now, the water flows into the water turbine, which would have been down in that pit. So you close this, close these gates, drop them down, seal off the water, the turbine stops. So the mill will stop.
Well, I'm really hoping that we can restore more of these mills so that people can start enjoying those stone ground grits and that real cornmeal. It tastes so different than the stuff that's done in an industrial setting.
It does, in fact, it's very different. The stuff you buy commercially has a long shelf life, but there's a price to be paid for that.
Flavor.
Flavor, that's right. We slowly built this thing up so that it operates not on water, but with electric power. It serves as a demonstration for throughput of corn into finished products of cornmeal and grits. Do we want to turn this on?
Yes.
It's noisy.
It's okay. So you put all the corn in here.
The corn goes in here.
You can feel the mill shaking.
Yeah.
I love it.
So the shaker drives the corn into the center of the wheel. The vertical wheels, one is turning, one is stationary. And it comes out here.
Oh, wow.
Goes into the elevator. Now the corn has come down here. We turned it off just so you could hear. And now
Oh, look at that.
the conveyor, the elevator, is picking up the ground at the bottom of this, picking it up the other side, throwing it over it down the chute, All of this mechanism is just to transport the ground corn to the sifter.
Okay, so it's coming through here.
Comes through here,
Okay.
goes into the sifter, and it's inside this basket,
Gotcha.
which is tapered, so it flows from this end to this end. There's these
So it's
four
just
grids.
turning it
rotating,
around.
and it's got a brushes inside, which are pressing it up against the grids. So we get cornmeal out of 4 sections and grits out of 2 sections. Okay?
This is so cool. You've got to have the best time doing this.
Well, we do when all the people come to see it.
Now I want to own a mill. Every time we go, like we go to the farms, we go to the mills, I'm like, I want to have pigs and chickens, and I want to have a mill now.
It has meaning to me because it makes me feel productive. It's a very selfish motivation, but I feel that I'm doing something worthwhile by keeping this place up and keeping it open for the public to see.
Stone ground grits have a completely different flavor than those machine milled ground grits, and it's exciting to see a couple actually restoring a piece of Missouri history. I've got my cornmeal right here. It's the star of the cake, but the first step in baking the cake is I'm going to grease and then flour this cake pan. Once the pan is greased, I'm just going to dust it with a tiny bit of flour. It's very easy. Just put some into your pan and then shake it around. It'll stick to all that good butter. We have a properly floured pan, and then this is parchment paper, which these little guys actually are acting as something of a lift to also help the cake be removed from the pan. And then we just take the circle of parchment and put it right in the bottom. This will ensure not only that the cake doesn't stick, but that it just has a really beautiful kind of brown color and very even texture when we take it out of the oven. So I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to get started on my batter. So into my stand mixer, it has the paddle attachment. I'm just going to put 4 eggs, a cup of sugar, and some vanilla. So this is just on medium speed. It's going to go for about 2 minutes until nice and fluffy. And in the interim, I'm going to go ahead and chop up 2 of these gorgeous apples. So something like a cornmeal cake really lends itself to adding things like apples or pears. The really rustic, sweet, nutty flavor of that cornmeal is just going to play really, really nicely with some of these kind of sweeter fruits. So we're nice and fluffy. I'm going to go ahead and set this aside and mix up all my dry ingredients. So just a 1.5 cups of flour. This kind of rustic cake is so easy to make, and it's the kind of thing that if you just decide on a Saturday morning that you want to throw it together for Saturday evening, you can easily and quickly put it together. All right, so now we're going to do just 3/4 cup of that cornmeal. A little salt always enhances wonderful sweet desserts. And then we're going to do just a little bit of baking powder. Just combine your dry ingredients. Okay, so to our really gorgeous and fluffy egg and sugar mixture, we're going to add in 1/2 of the dry ingredients, and then 1/2 of the olive oil. It's going to be a total of 3/4 cup of olive oil. And again, this might seem really unusual, but give it a try. Olive oil in baked goods is absolutely delicious because it adds that nuance that some other fats that we use in baking just don't. So just add in 1/2 of your olive oil. Mix all this up. And then just put in the rest of your dry ingredients, the rest of that olive oil, mix it up, and then we're going to fold in those apples. In go the apples, and once again, pears could work, nothing could work. You can do anything that you want at this stage. Right now, apples are in peak season, and so I'm using apples, and also it's gonna go beautifully with that apple cider caramel that we're gonna be making in just a little bit, and those sauteed apples that we're gonna kind of put on top when we serve the cake. All right, and we're done. I'm just gonna pour the batter now into that prepared pan. I'm gonna put my cake in the oven, and let's head over to Kansas City and meet the woman behind Graine to Glass. She started out her career as a microbiologist and ended up helping out breweries such as Boulevard to help increase the quality of their beers. Now she has this home brewing company, and so if you're into beer, this one's for you.
Yes, I'm a microbiologist by degree, got my master's at UMKC. I got involved in home brewing in 2006.
Well, Graine to Glass is somewhere you can come not only to get all your homebrew supplies to brew your own beer at home, but also we like to give our customers a lot of knowledge. So you can come in for advice. You also can come in and purchase beer to go, have a beer here while you're actually shopping for your homebrew supplies. So we really try and encapsulate as much as we can within the craft beer culture and kind of share that with our customers.
I became involved in Boulevard Brewing Company back in '89. Well, those were back in the early days of the craft beer thing, and I had been to Europe and had discovered Weiss beer while in southern Germany. And Boulevard was making a wheat beer, and I think I even mentioned that in my interview with John McDonald. So I was starting to get excited about craft beer, and so was the rest of the country. Well, I had a customer that wants an all-grain recipe, and we have a book of recipes. It's really convenient for when somebody's looking for a particular style, and we'll weigh out the grains and mill them and put them together for him.
So that's what you do, like if somebody says, I want to make whatever kind of beer, you'll pull all of the necessary components together so that all they have to do is come here, pick it up, and then they can go home and brew.
Yes.
We used to have just one type of beer. I mean, the American Adjunct Light Lager. And now we are seeing the art, the craft, we're seeing the history that the beer culture should have. We're starting to see America create a really beautiful beer history. And Kansas City is a new city that is really gonna pick that up, I think.
So do you develop your own recipes? Like, are there Graine to Glass recipes?
Yes, we have developed some of our own. Like this peach pumpkin we developed just this
Beer
summer.
lovers will get the inside joke on that,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I can see where people would just go down the rabbit hole in home brewing, where you play around with one recipe and maybe you add hops here or you don't. You decide that you're going to pull in some herbs and you can just play around and make things your own. I mean, it's like cooking. It's like when somebody really gets into cooking or baking, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, I say that all the time in my classes. Brewing is like cooking. It is quite sometimes an addictive hobby. People really get into making their own creations and sharing them with friends.
I really think that the home brewing community and the craft beer community lean on each other for their strengths. They're helping share these beers they make at home with their friends, these new flavors that their friends and family get to try. Those are new consumers that help strengthen our craft beer community. So really they run hand in hand and work together closely.
Now I'm all inspired. I want to start doing this at home too. I mean,
yeah, lots of women are into brewing.
well, women always were the brewers.
That's exactly right, yep.
Then guys took it over.
Yeah, they were called brewsters, and it was a domestic chore back in era.
You bake your bread and you brew your beer. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very much, and then you would brew beer for your household. It wasn't something where you went out to buy it.
That's right.
We really want to help each other. We really want to bind together to make sure we stay around. We want to make sure craft beer makes a difference, and we want to make sure that we can all show everyone what we love and what we enjoy about the flavors and the community of craft beer.
So is that it?
That's it for his recipe.
This is wonderful. So we've got yeast, hops, sugar for the bottle conditioning, and then 10 pounds of grains.
Right.
And that's going to make a stout.
Uh-huh.
I wish I could stick around for a couple of weeks and taste this. I am going to be topping my polenta cake, my cornmeal cake, with an apple cider and cinnamon caramel. It's really, really easy to make. All you have to do is, first off, reduce 2 cups of apple cider on the stove top. When you open up these jugs of apple cider, I mean, it smells so good. That's amazing. And so all of that flavor is gonna get condensed and intensified as the cider is reducing down. So I'm just gonna get this on the heat and let it go for a little bit. My cider is reduced, and so I am reducing the heat just down to medium-low. This took about 10-15 minutes or so. Just kind of keep an eye on it. I'm gonna put in about 5 tablespoons of butter. I'm also gonna add in a cup of brown sugar and 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream. And then we just need about a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. Okay, you want to bring your heat back up to about medium. And you're going to want to cook and kind of stir this for about 10 or 15 minutes until it gets really thick and dark and syrupy. This is going to take a while. So as I stand here and stir the pot, let's head over to Circle B Ranch. The folks that run this ranch are very committed to humane treatment of their animals. They raise heritage hogs and they've got chickens. They're a really great couple. And so let's head over to Seymour, Missouri now.
Yes, I'm John Backus, and that's my wife Marina over there. You're in Seymour, Missouri, and on my hog farm, Circle B Ranch. Eep, peek, 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 peek. There's old Barney. Come on. Come on.
That's the biggest pig I've ever seen.
He's actually a Newman hog. Ah. Well, we always appreciated natural food. We always kept our own chickens, ducks, turkeys for our own consumption because we trusted the food. We wanted to go into a business where we thought it was in demand, and certainly natural food is in demand. Well, being pasture-raised, as you can see, they're on a pasture. They're given the full ability to exercise all their instincts. And we raise our animals to certain standards. They're raised humanely and naturally, so it affords the best possible product to the consumer.
Can we see the babies?
Yeah.
While we were waiting for the hogs to grow, I couldn't get a job. No matter what I tried to do, I couldn't get a job. So we started making sauces. We started making a tomato sauce, a cranberry chutney, and a barbecue, which was pretty awesome. And we got them into the different stores, and it was good. So then he said, one day, he said, you know, hey, we're making tomato sauce, why don't we do meatballs? It's like sort of a no-brainer, so.
I was just watching the pigs over here. They were playing with the hose. Like a little toy. They were throwing it up in the air.
They play like dogs. They'll pick up a stick and run around with it, and one has it, one tries to take it away from them. If you put a ball in there, or sometimes they'll give a boar one of those blue drums, plastic drums, and he'll be tossing that thing all over the place.
In the beginning, I did a lot of groveling, a lot of, please try my product, it's really good, you'll like it. Calling them back, have you tried it yet? No, I haven't. You know, it's in my freezer, oh, please do it. And once they started tasting it and sampling it, and we started developing relationships with chefs in that way, a lot of chefs are starting to call us, you know.
Well, the growth is probably attributed to our name getting around. It's been in enough restaurants and markets in St. Louis, Kansas City, down here, and now, you know, the name is getting out. We've held to our held to our principles in breeding, so we held to our quality standards, so people have tasted our product, everything from the hogs to our sauces, our specialty sauces, and they appreciate the quality in it. I mean, that's where it originates. If your hogs aren't happy and healthy, they're not going to produce for you, and you're not going to make money. So they're basically like, you know, taking care of your valued employees. So give them the best that you can. I think we've done that here. You know, our biggest concern is the natural environment for them.
This caramel has gotten thick and it's kind of clinging a little bit to the side of the pan, and it's turned this really beautiful, almost mahogany color. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the heat. This is screaming hot. I mean, you know how hot sugar gets when it cools. So just be real careful when you're making something like caramel. So I'm letting this cool just a tiny bit, and then I'm going to stir in a dash of salt and a little bit of vanilla, and allow this to cool all the way down to room temperature before we drizzle it on top of our cake. So that's nicely incorporated. And like I said, I'm just gonna set this aside, and I'm gonna go ahead and start slicing up my apples, because I'm going to saute apples in some cinnamon and sugar and butter, and we're gonna serve that with the cake as well. So when you're sauteing with butter, you want to let it melt, kind of let it foam up, and then once the foam subsides, then you're ready to go ahead and add whatever it is that you're going to cook. Sprinkle in just a little bit of sugar. And I'm using brown sugar, you can use white sugar, whatever you want to use. And then just a tiny bit of cinnamon. We're just going to saute these until they get nice and soft and a little bit brown. So our last segment in this episode is really, really fun. We actually had a chance to go to the very first home game for Mizzou to kind of check out the tailgating tradition. I did not go to a large school like Mizzou when I was in college. I went to a small private school in the middle of Indiana, so this was a cultural experience for me. Let's head over to Columbia. So take me through what you have created.
Yeah, so the one thing that we already have that's set up is this over here, which is, it's a really basic bean, corn, tomato dip. It's really flavorful, it's really simple to put together, and it's utterly addicting. And then over here, and it's covered in saran wrap at the moment, but that's our potato salad, and that's almost finished. We just pulled off the last of the potatoes off the grill. This is gonna be our bread for the grilled bologna sandwich.
With pimento cheese.
With pimento cheese. And then these are our monstrous pork chops.
They're humongous.
Yeah,
How long
so
is it gonna take to cook them?
I don't know, we're gonna find out together, I think. So.
What are some of the things that your family would make when you guys would come up and tailgate?
You know, honestly, like cold fried chicken was something that we always just had a bucket of cold fried chicken, you know? And that was part of the experience. So I think really food is so personal in so many ways. This is a personal expression of the food that I would make at something like this. Everybody's got a different idea of what works for them. Ultimately, it's all about getting together as a group and having fun with it, you know? And food doesn't need to be the star, it needs to support the atmosphere, you know? So be part of like the party, basically, you know? So this might end up being the star actually today, but
You mean those massive
yeah,
chops, or you mean the sandwich?
well, maybe the sandwich for you.
Yeah, I'm excited about the sandwich. What temp are you looking for on the pork? Because you don't want it to be well done.
I don't. I'm fine with doing it like at 140.
You want it to be pink.
Yeah, especially in the middle. And this, I don't think there's any way around that. It's gonna be pink. What I'm doing right now is I'm just gonna get color, caramelization, get a crust going, I'm not gonna worry about trying to cook it, you know, super far. I'm going for color. Then I'm gonna pull them off and let them rest.
Okay.
And then once they're all ready and they've rested for a little bit so that the juices kind of redistribute, then I'm gonna put them back over here off heat and I'm gonna cover it.
Like putting it in the oven?
Yeah, just like a convection. I mean, it's gonna work that way because all my charcoal is off to this side, so it's gonna have this kind of motion to it. So I'm just gonna keep flipping and basting to develop that crust.
All the fat is just sizzling. That's
so when
gorgeous.
it sizzles, you know, that's when I want to brush. That's when I want to brush on here, okay? Because I want to cool off that sizzle.
You're going to be the most popular man at Mizzou today. Forget the football, because we've got some amazing food. So the way to unmold your cake is to take your plate or your cake stand or whatever it is that you're using, invert it onto the pan, and then turn everything upside down like this. And with a little bit of luck, it should come out. Just like that. Ta-da! Then you just peel off all that parchment paper, which, as I mentioned at the top of the show, it just protects your baked good and helps to unmold it. And you can see the flecks of the cornmeal just in the surface of the cake. It's really beautiful. So now I've got this gorgeous, gorgeous caramel. I'm gonna spoon this on top. This is almost irresistible, how beautiful it is. And this is the kind of caramel that gets nice and thick when it cools. So it's going to form just a really nice surface on top of the cake. Then just arrange your apple slices on top in whatever pattern you want, or no pattern at all. It hardly matters because it'll taste the same. I'm gonna finish this guy up because I am ready to eat it. It is so beautiful and it smells wonderful. And this is such a simple cake, again, using cornmeal and olive oil. It's just rustic and it's rich, and having those apples incorporated is just a really nice way to kind of play up that sweetness of the cornmeal. And I'm gonna pair this, as I mentioned, with a white port. Now you might think that port is always red, like a ruby or a tawny port, but also it can be white. And so this is made with white grapes, and it's from the Herman region in Missouri. Ports are fortified wines. They're sweet and rich and thick, and they have a higher alcohol content, so they're perfect for pairing with dessert at the end of a meal. Oh, it smells wonderful. That beautiful color. It's gonna have slightly oxidized flavor, which is gonna go beautifully with the richness of the caramel. So cheers. Thanks for joining me on this episode, and I'll see you next time.